lie that feels like truth.
It doesn't start with chains. It starts with choices that never felt like choices. A school bell ringing, a screen lighting up, a reward for obedience disguised as freedom. And somewhere along the way, you stopped asking who built the walls around you, because the walls became invisible. That's the brilliance of the lie. Not that it forces you to submit, but that it makes you believe you're already free. And in that illusion, most men sleepwalk through life, scrolling in silence, smiling without joy, and mistaking noise for direction. Modern life is not designed for freedom. It's designed for sedation. It feeds you just enough validation to keep you docile, just enough stimulation to keep you distracted. Cal Newport reminds us that most of our attention is no longer voluntary. We've outsourced it, willingly, to algorithms that know us better than we know ourselves. Every swipe, every click, every habit formed in the dark is not accidental. It is installation, a system engineered to reward conformity while disguising it as autonomy. Martin Seligman's theory of learned helplessness explains it well. When living things are restrained long enough, they stop trying to escape, not because they enjoy the cage, but because they've forgotten how to want something else. The pain of failure is easier to carry than the pain of waking up, so we adjust, we adapt, we comply, until submission feels like security and obedience feels like peace. The most dangerous part of this lie is its appearance. It doesn't scream control, it whispers ambition. It doesn't feel like chains. It feels like routine. It tells you you're building a future, when in reality, you're reinforcing your own cage. With every post, every scroll, every unexamined yes, you think you're choosing, but you're not. You're following instructions written by systems you never questioned. And the longer you stay asleep, the more the lie begins to look like life. The invisible cage you were born into. You didn't design the world you were born into. You inherited it, and with it came invisible rules, invisible systems, invisible expectations. From your first classroom to your last login, everything around you has whispered the same command: comply. But it was never spoken directly. It was embedded in bells that told you when to sit and when to move, in grades that taught you how to seek approval, in digital feeds that replaced silence with endless stimulation. Slowly, subtly, you were taught not to question the structure, only how to succeed within it. But what is success in a system built to keep you asleep? The deeper you go into the maze, chasing degrees, likes, promotions, the further you drift from your own direction, the more rewarded you are, the more you forget what it feels like to act without needing applause. You work harder, push further, and still, something feels off. Because you're not climbing toward freedom, you're just moving deeper into a design you never chose. And yet, the world keeps applauding your exhaustion. It tells you that you're stable, that you're on track. But stability is not sovereignty. One is rooted in comfort, the other in control. And most men today don't seek control. They seek permission. Permission to slow down, to speak truth, to deviate, to stop pretending. But the structure doesn't give that. It only rewards obedience. And so the cage persists, invisible, silent, and self-reinforcing. Freedom doesn't begin with escape. It begins with recognition. The moment you realize the cage was built before you could even speak, that you were trained to fit in long before you ever wondered who you were, that the lie isn't just outside, it's now inside. And waking up starts by seeing the bars you were told didn't exist. When identity becomes a costume. There's a moment, barely noticeable, when you stop living from within and start performing from without. It happens slowly. At first, you adjust your words to avoid conflict. Then you tailor your appearance to fit the room. Then your voice softens, your desires shrink, and before long, you've become an echo. Not a man, just a response. A reflex built to survive in a world that never wanted your truth. Only your compliance. You dress for approval. You post for validation. You grind for applause. And it works. The likes come. The compliments come. The promotions come. But each reward feeds the mask, not the man. Each performance is a rehearsal for forgetting who you are. You become efficient at playing the role, and the role becomes permanent. The costume fuses to your skin, and the silence inside you grows. Dopamine doesn't care about your truth. It only cares about the signal, what gets attention, what gets rewarded, what gets repeated. And so, your image thrives while your inner voice starves. You learn to measure worth by external mirrors. You learn to smile when you're exhausted. You learn to perform authenticity while forgetting what it actually feels like. Eventually, even you believe the act. You call it normal. You call it adulthood. But deep down, something remains unsettled. Because beneath the mask, your soul knows it's being staged. And it aches, not because it's weak, but because it remembers. It remembers the voice you silenced, the truth you edited, the presence you abandoned for applause. And that realization, when it comes, doesn't liberate you immediately. It confronts you, because to remove the costume means to risk being unknown, unseen, unapproved. But that's where identity begins, not in what is performed, but in what remains when there's no one left to impress. Why clarity feels like collapse. Waking up doesn't feel like awakening. It feels like loss. Not because you're broken, but because the illusion is. And when that illusion dies, something inside you mourns. You're not just grieving lies, you're grieving time, years spent chasing borrowed goals, energy spent polishing a mask, relationships built on roles instead of truth. And when all of that begins to fall apart, it doesn't feel like liberation, it feels like death. Clarity is not a rush of power, it's a stillness that exposes everything you've been avoiding. It pulls the curtain back, and behind it, you find a version of yourself you abandoned. Not because you were weak, but because the world taught you it wasn't safe to be him, to be honest, to be unfiltered, to be fully awake in a culture that rewards sedation. And in that moment, your achievements start to look different. Not wrong, but misaligned. Not failures, but fragments of someone you no longer recognize. You question the systems you once served. You question the values you once adopted. And that questioning doesn't give answers, at least not right away. It gives grief, raw, heavy, real. But within that grief, something rare begins to stir, not to regret, but recognition. The recognition that the pain is not punishment, it's proof. Proof that you're no longer willing to perform a life that doesn't fit, that you're done pretending comfort means purpose, that you're ready to trade clarity for applause. Marcus Aurelius captured this with precision. If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. Not with pride, but with humility. Because truth isn't about being right, it's about being real, even when it breaks you first. The ritual of radical presence. There is a part of you that's never been fully heard, not because it lacks voice, but because your life has become too loud to notice it. Every moment is filled, every silence invaded. Even rest becomes a performance. And so that deeper voice, the one that carries truth, gets drowned beneath layers of noise, speed, and habit. But that voice hasn't died. It's waiting beneath the scroll, beneath the playlist, beneath the list of tasks, waiting for you to stop pretending you're too busy to meet yourself. To hear it, you need to do something most men now fear. Nothing. Not passive nothingness. Intentional stillness. 30 minutes without input. No music. No productivity. No phone. Just silence and space. Not to analyze. Not to fix. Just to let the chaos surface. Because beneath all that momentum lives a mind that's been suffocating in performance. And only in presence does it begin to speak again. As you sit, discomfort will rise. Boredom, resistance, memories you'd rather keep buried, voices you thought were long gone. But none of it is wrong. None of it is dangerous. It's just what's been waiting for your attention. And once you stop silencing it with stimulation, it returns. Raw, awkward, honest. Then write. Not for clarity, not for answers. Just let it spill. Let your hand be the bridge between your unconscious and your awareness. Don't edit. Don't explain. Just release. Because truth doesn't shout. It whispers. but only when the room is quiet enough to hear it. This ritual isn't dramatic. It's not impressive, but it's sacred. Because in a world addicted to distraction, stillness is rebellion, and attention, real, unfiltered, unmarketed attention, becomes the most powerful act of self-ownership you can practice. The system didn't fail you. It designed you. It's tempting to believe you were broken by accident, that your fatigue is a glitch, that your anxiety is a side effect, that your emptiness means you just haven't figured it out yet. But the truth is far more unsettling and far more empowering. You weren't broken. You were built by systems that reward obedience, monetize your attention, and shape your desires before you even learn how to name them. The design was never about your wholeness. It was about your usefulness, and the sooner you see that, the sooner you can start to remember who you were before the molding began. Robert Greene reminds us, real power begins with detachment, and detachment doesn't mean withdrawal. It means seeing clearly enough to stop playing a game that was rigged from the start. It means stepping out of the performance, watching the roles fall, feeling the silence that comes after the script ends. That's not weakness. That's the beginning of authorship, of writing your life in your own language, not theirs. Most men never rebel, not because they agree, but because rebellion looks like failure, because the leash has been disguised as a lifeline, because comfort has been sold as clarity. But silence does not mean peace. And stillness, when born of fear, is not presence. It's paralysis. It's the slow decay of the part of you that still remembers what freedom feels like. And so the first act of power is not external, it's internal. It's the moment you stop lying to yourself, even if it costs you everything you built on that lie. It's the choice to face the collapse, not as an ending, but as an invitation to begin again, without the noise, without the costume, without the sedation. Just you, awake, unedited, ready to rebuild not a better version of the mask, but the return of a man who can finally see